So look, a big welcome to everyone. Thank you for making your time available to attend our special webinar on taking your training online and what are some of the e-learning and assessment capabilities of aXcelerate that can help you do that. Obviously, these are challenging times, and challenging times call for challenging solutions and innovative solutions, and also passionate people. And so hopefully at the end of this seminar or this webinar, you'll have a really good understanding of what are the capabilities that can assist you in the short term, but will also set you up well for the long term. All right, so let's have a look at some of what we're going to cover in this morning's session. First of all, we're going to look at delivery of e-learning. We're going to look at SCORM and the XAPI, which are formats of e-learning. We're going to look at how you could simply take existing resources that you've got as an RTO and use aXcelerate to put them online so that your students can access them. And also how you could set up a virtual classroom using the workshops feature of aXcelerate. Then we're then going to look at some of the assessment capabilities of aXcelerate, and in particular, how you can author assessments in aXcelerate and use the competency mapping tools that we've created to actually make compliant, competency-based online assessments. But we'll also show you some ways that you could use the assessment tools to take maybe your existing assessment materials, learner guides and so forth, and use them in a file upload, file download mode. All right, so let's have a look at SCORM and XAPI e-learning. So we're going to look at what is SCORM, what is XAPI, how can you create your own SCORM content or purchase it from a provider, and then how can you use that e-learning content, that SCORM format e-learning content in aXcelerate, and we're going to show you what the learner will see once you've actually deployed some e-learning through aXcelerate and you're effectively deploying it to your learner. What will the student see in their journey? All right, so SCORM and the XAPI, also known as Project Tin Can. Firstly, SCORM is the de facto standard for e-learning. There are actually a number of standards in the e-learning industry, but SCORM is by far the most common. SCORM stands for Shareable Content Object Reference Model, and essentially it's a standard that was developed back in 2000 to create consistent and repeatable and, if you like, standardized approaches to building e-learning packages. And the main benefit of having a standardization is using a content package which could be used in a range of different learning management systems. XAPI, also known as Tin Can, which is a project which was started by ADL back in 2013, is actually the new emerging e-learning standard. It's taken many years to get to where it is, but it is definitely the standard for the future, and most popular authoring tools that you can create e-learning content now offer XAPI as one of the publishing formats. And we'll look at that in just a few moments. And the beauty of having content which is created using an authoring tool, which is SCORM or XAPI compliant, is that when you publish that package, you can then use it in any sort of learning management system that is SCORM or XAPI compliant. And of course, what that means is that you're able to transport your content and take it with you if you ever leave the student management system or the learning management system that you've been using. It doesn't all just sit tied up in that system. So you retain, if you like, the maximum flexibility and the ownership of that IP, which for many RTOs can be a source of their competitive advantage. So next slide, Kate. So aXcelerate was a very early adopter of the Tin Can API, or the Experience API, as it's called now. The reason for the name XAPI is essentially it's a new standard that enables you to capture experience in a range of different ways. So a learner experience used to be confined just to the web browser on their computer. But nowadays there's gamification, there's online learning via mobile, via tablets. And so, you know, the scope of e-learning has expanded tremendously. And so it was felt back in sort of, I guess, as early as 2010 that there needed to be a new standard to take advantage of some of these different modes of learning. All right, so let's have a look at content authoring tools. Some of the popular ones, and you possibly have already heard of them. Adobe Captivate is a premier product from Adobe, which is part of the, I guess, the Adobe Creative Suite. So if you've got skills in the Adobe Creative Suite, you'll be able to use the tool set in Adobe Captivate very easily. AXcelerate is probably the top dog. It's the #1 e-learning content authoring tool, and it has a number of products, but the two key ones are aXcelerate Storyline, which is, if you like, a tool which provides a comprehensive range of different features, and also aXcelerate Rise 360, which is a completely cloud-based authoring tool, which doesn't have all of the bells and whistles and the comprehensive feature set that Storyline does, but it's much quicker and easy to use, particularly if you're not experienced with some of the instructional design tools of the more sophisticated authoring tools. Why would you use an authoring tool to create your e-learning? Well, one of the reasons is that they have a wide range of templates, right? Which is half the battle won when you're trying to create new content. You've got a rich, if you like, range of templates that you can choose from. And I'll show you some examples of that in a minute. And there are also, there's a whole ecosystem of organizations that actually specialize in creating templates for the big players like Adobe Captivate, like aXcelerate Storyline. And one of them is Faster Course. They create templates that you can just import into your, if you like, your Captivate e-learning environment and start to use them straight away. Another thing is that you can take your PowerPoint presentations, import them into one of these authoring tools, and start to add interactive elements and questions very quickly, so that you can then publish that and get going with really nicely media-rich e-learning, interactive e-learning content quickly and easily. And of course, the benefit is that they publish to SCORM and XAPI. All right, so one of the things that that we're going to do now is I'm just going to I'm
going to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, good, and I'll share mine.
Sure.
Good. All right, so I'll go share. I hope all of this works. Good. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Do you want to just
click on, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen sitting on your desktop.
Great. I'm just going to jump into here, and I'm just going to just jump forward. Can you see my slides as I'm scrolling through?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So actually, I'll just get out of that full screen, and I'll just jump into here and show you. This is aXcelerate Rise's website. So it's essentially their premier product, which is Rise 360, is a fully responsive e-learning content development tool. And I signed up for Rise. I've actually signed up a few times. I don't have an active account, but I've just signed up for a free trial. And what I've done is gone into Rise, and I've essentially got a course which I've actually taken a sample course of Rise, and I've actually adapted it. Right? So this is the dashboard that you look at and that's displayed to you when you first log in, and you'll see the sample course sitting there. But if you wanted to create a new course, you can simply click on New Course, and you can start from scratch, or you can use one of these templates. And you can see that there's a nice range of different templates to choose from depending on your course type. So I'm just going to just minimize that little control and then close that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill into this course, which I have actually done a little bit of editing to. It opens up in a really nice, simple editor. You've got the overview of the course, and then you've got the sections of the course. So this is the editing tool, if you like, where you can create your sections for content, and then you can create the content itself, whether it's a lesson or whether it's a quiz. So I was able to easily create a new content section, which I call working from home, and then also some lesson pieces as well. I was able to just very quickly and easily go in and edit the content, copy and paste my content, add a picture, or you could add a video. There's other elements that you can add very easily using this simple content editor. And then you can even preview what you've just created. And the nice thing about the preview function is that you can see what it's going to look like in desktop, tablet landscape, or even mobile. And in fact, you can even scroll through the content to see what it's going to look like.
Pretty
So
cool.
jump back into the edit mode. So very simple and easy to use controls, and even I can use it, so it must be simple. So then let's have a look at how you would then export this package, if you like, this e-learning course or content that you've just created. It's got the export type, and so you've got 3 types there, PDF, web, or LMS. I'm going to choose the LMS, and you'll notice that in the if you choose LMS, it then says, well, what format do you want to publish to? So SCORM 1.2 is an older standard. SCORM 2004 has actually been around for probably 15 years or so, yeah. But I've chosen XAPI or tin can content. And so that's all you need to do. There's some other options that you can actually say how you want this piece of content to be tracked using a quiz. So it could be that you're going to track the outcomes of this particular package using the quiz result. And you can
Or
also,
it could be that it's just that the student got 100% of the way through all of the learning. So that's completed, for
yeah,
example.
absolutely. All right, so I'm not going to export this because that'll take about 30 or 40 seconds, but I just click the export button. It would start the export and it would download that package essentially to a zip file. Now, there is just one other thing that I wanted to explain to you, which is a very important feature of the tin can content, and that is that whenever a learner is actually scrolling through their course and they're working through their course, essentially all that SCORM can really track is when the learner started, when the learner stopped, and then what was the result of that course. Whereas with the XAPI standard, essentially it can track every single element that the learner is working through. So every single time a learner clicks on e-learning content, sits on a page, watches a video, and so forth, XAPI is actually capturing at a very granular level every single movement and every single action that the learner is taking, as well as obviously the results of quizzes and assessments and so forth. And that's why it makes the future of learning analytics and the ability to track exactly what's happening with your learner and how they're progressing through their learning much easier. So I just wanted to add that in. So I'm now going to hand over to Katie, and I'm going to stop sharing so that she can now take over and show you what happens now once you've got that e-learning package. What do you do in aXcelerate then to deploy it in our aXcelerate SCORM area?
Yeah, and I was just going to say as well, I don't know that we mentioned this at the beginning, but if you do have any questions at all, we do have Isaac, the lovely Isaac from our team, and he's moderating today. So if you do have some questions pop them in the chat box. We're not going to answer as we go through, just because there could be content that we go through that actually answers your question. I'm hoping that's the case. So we will have a question or a Q&A at the end of our presentation or our webinar. So if you sit tight, we will get to all of the questions that you pop into the chat box. All right, so you can all see my screen okay, I'm hoping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into my next tab over, which is actually aXcelerate. So I know that there's some people on the webinar that may not be familiar with aXcelerate as yet, but hopefully this is a nice little introduction for you. So now that Ray has exported that content and downloaded that content, basically in aXcelerate, we have an option under our courses tab, which is the ability to import a SCORM/TinCan package or course. So if we were to click on that, we would effectively come to this page where aXcelerate is allowing us to now upload that SCORM or TinCan little export that always downloads. That's always going to be a zip file. So it's just the file that exports out of your content creation tool. The other, I guess, piece of this puzzle, which some of you might be utilizing already, is actually not creating your own content, but actually purchasing content through a content provider. I guess there's pros and cons of both of those. If you want very bespoke, customized content relating specifically to the types of learners that you might be delivering your learning to or your courses to, you might want to create your own. If you want something that's very much out of the box, it's going to save you a little bit of time because you're not having to create it. A content provider can be really, really good. So some of those really popular packages, there's quite a lot of providers out there that will be able to provide you with a SCORM package that you can purchase and at the same time upload it into aXcelerate. So to import this SCORM package, it's very, very simple. I think I've actually got a little example of a SCORM package here. You can see the zip at the end. So I'm just going to drag and drop it. And I might call this prepare poultry dishes. Now I've already got this uploaded as a SCORM file, so I'm not going to re-upload it again, but there are a few other options that you can fill out. Things like a description and outline, which I'll kind of demonstrate as I show you through what a learner will actually see in their portal. But otherwise, that's it. It's a very simple process. You just need the file, a name, and effectively that would then become one of the many packages in my SCORM TinCan package list. So if I go and have a little look for my prepare poultry, I've got a couple in here, but that's what I'm going to be using to demonstrate with you today. So with these SCORM packages, you may have something like an induction course and you've got a new staff member, and this might be more of like an enterprise RTO scenario, or even, you know, some internal training within your organization or of new staff. That's just one example, but that's how we use it internally to train some of our new staff. And so you can just by itself actually enroll a participant straight into that e-learning activity as a standalone, and that's all that they'll see in their portal. They'll have the ability to launch it, complete it, very nice and simple. I guess the most popular way that our clients use this is to actually relate this e-learning package back to a unit of competency, which I've done here in the next tab. So under our courses and our units of competency in aXcelerate, I've actually got prepare poultry dishes as my unit, part of our commercial cookery course. And as I scroll down, you can see here one of the many options down here is unit of competency default e-learning. So the reason that we're setting that default at our unit level is so that whenever we're creating a new intake, a new class, possibly an accredited short course with that specific unit attached to it, and we enroll a student into that unit, they are also being pushed into that e-learning as well. So it makes it very, very easy. Once it's there, it's basically just enrolling the student into their course, and they'll be pushed into it automatically. Okay, so any other points, Ray, before I kind of show everyone what the SCORM package looks like to open up in our learner portal?
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to note as well is that if you can actually make a single e-learning package clustered around 3 or 4 units. So yeah, it actually could be the default e-learning course for 3 different units. So you can actually have a one-to-many relationship between an e-learning object and units. I think the other thing is that you can see that there's the little plus button which says add learning activity. You can actually add a number of different learning activities, not only the SCORM XAPI learning content, but you could also add a Moodle e-learning course. If you were using Canvas, you could use a Canvas e-learning course. All of those can be learning objects which attach to that unit.
Yeah, very, very good point. So as Ray said, if you do deliver in that more of that modular way, or you've got learning and assessments that are clustered across multiple units, that is definitely possible just by relating it to multiple units in this area. Okay, I feel like I need a drum roll. All right, so if I jump into our learner portal, this is actually, we've just given our learner portal a little bit of a refresh. So this is our newest learner portal, or our current learner portal. And I've actually just enrolled a particular student in a Cert 4 in commercial cookery. I will get to these assessments down below as well, but we can actually see I have some learning to do, which is my prepare poultry dishes, which is actually a sample from training resource solutions, sorry. So I'm going to show you the two different ways that I could jump into this package. I mean, I can very quickly and easily just jump from my homepage as a student straight into that. And that's going to bring up my little overview of the course. I can see, okay, I'm going to learn about this. So please click Launch Learning to get started. And I could hit Launch Learning there. So that's one way to easily get into it. If you're, you might have a student that's working through more of a full qualification, and they might already be looking at the unit of competency they're doing, they can click Learning straight through there as well. But otherwise, we can actually go to the unit of competency, which I can see I'm in progress at the moment. So that's my prepare poultry dishes. And when I open that up, it's actually going to show me any of my assessments, any of my workshops, learning, and also resources that I might need to undertake for this particular unit as well. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into that package. And I'm going to click Launch Learning and just show you exactly what happens. So now this looks a little different to Ray's course. Potentially this could be done, this may have been done in Articulate Rise, but it could also have been done in one of the other many content creation tools. But as I click through, I just want to kind of give you a little bit of an idea as to how interactive you can really make your SCORM. So you can have very stripped down SCORM where it might literally be more of a PowerPoint that I'm clicking through until the very end. But you can also have these really lovely quizzes that are built in, little mini assessments that the student might need to, oh no, I got it wrong. So yeah, there's all sorts of different ways that you can set this up, but it's just a really nice way to deliver learning. All right, so I'm just going to close that. And I'm going to jump back to my homepage, and I wanted to talk about very quickly, if you're not wanting to use SCORM, I guess what else can you use in terms of delivering learning in aXcelerate? So well, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this, and it could be a combination of different things. But I guess one of the very quick ways, if you're a face-to-face RTO, this is your first time going online, and you may be completely, you might be using paper for all of your learning resources and all of your assessments. This could be a nice quick way to get your learning online while you're doing a little bit more work in the background to get it fully online. So what we have in aXcelerate is a resources library. So if I jump into, I'm just going to jump into this tab here and just jump into my resources library. And within my resources library, I have a section or a category called training related. So if I jump in there, I've actually got a list of all sorts of different learning resources. Now, a learning resource could be a Word document, it might be a PDF file, it could be a workbook, it could also be an external link to some sort of video, so a YouTube video or a Vimeo video that you want the student going through or being able to access. So it's a really, really great way, you know, obviously for any sort of learning that might be right now a PDF that we don't have time to go into SCORM and kind of fill all of that out or create those packages. It's just a really simple way to get it online. So I'm just going to demonstrate a little example of that for you now and just show you what that looks like. So I've created a little resource When we add a resource, it's very simple. I won't go through all of this, but it's literally dragging and dropping. If it's a file, as I said, you've got the option of a web URL link as well. You would be giving it a name. You would basically be saying it is accessible by students. And then you could go in and say, it's actually not a form. It's not part of our policies or our general information. It is a training related resource or activity. And as soon as we do that, when we actually upload the resource, we're given the option to actually link it to specific units, qualifications, or workshops within the system as well. Now, I'm trying to just find my little unit resource. Let me find it. Here we go. So I just uploaded a workbook, just a PDF document called Prepare Poultry Dishes. Very much on the poultry hype at the moment. And what you'll be able to see next to that particular resource is this little link icon. When I click on that, that's going to actually allow me to link it to specific units, specific qualifications, workshops, so on and so forth. So it's just a really easy way to upload, link to the unit, so that as a learner, if I jump into my course and I'm now looking at my Prepare Poultry Dishes unit, I've actually got that resource sitting right here. And if I was to click on that, that's going to nicely open up to my poultry cookery, and it's my, workbook that I might need to work through as a student. Okay, so that's just one of the other many options, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that down the track. But one other thing we wanted to discuss with you was the virtual classroom, and really how you could potentially use aXcelerate to be able to facilitate online learning just as you're undertaking with us today. So I guess it's a very good example, today's webinar, as to how you can achieve, having a particular time, date, a facilitator, but also a link to a external meeting like a Zoom conference meeting, a Google Classroom, potentially maybe GoToTraining or GoToMeeting. So I was going to just take you through and just show you how we've achieved that in aXcelerate using our workshops area. Ray, is there anything you want to add before I move into that section?
No, all good.
Awesome.
Go for it.
So what we've actually done, I'm going to very quickly jump into our live system that we use and we've used to actually set up the webinar today. And I'm going to just show you, just as a live example, how we've done that. So anyone that's familiar with workshops in the system, workshops are your first sort of panel directly underneath, or column directly underneath your courses area. Now, workshops are typically face-to-face. So these are really heavily used within our clients that run short courses, whether they're accredited or non-accredited. But typically there's a time, a date, a location, or a venue, and a facilitator, all tied back to this workshop. So how do we then use that online? So if I jump into this little workshop here, which is actually the workshop that we're all in at the moment, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an idea as to how we've achieved this. So this is our workshop view. I can see here the duration. I can see the time and date, the minimum, maximum participants, how many people are actually booked on at this point. I don't actually have a venue. My location is a Zoom online meeting. And all of my joining details, which are my Zoom joining details, are actually within the workshop comments area. Now, the way that we get this all to work is we go and create a workshop. We would make sure that we have a Zoom meeting set up already that we can grab the invitation details from to pop into the comments area. And then it's actually through our workflow automation engine and obviously through our template feature that we can actually get those details out to our learners, or in this case, automatically send those through to everyone who's now sitting on this webinar. So I just wanted to show you this template that we've sent through, and you would have all received this possibly on the 10th, or maybe this is an older one, that's okay. But basically in here, what we've done using I'm actually just going to show you the template. That's probably the better way to go. So let's just go into the webinar reminder template. So this is our templates area in aXcelerate. This is where you can go and create things like booking confirmations, training plans, invoice receipts, that sort of thing. And if I jump into this template that we've created, I will scroll down and just show you the fields that we have in here. So we've actually got workshop name, we've got the date descriptor, which is just the date in which the workshop or the training is happening. We've got the start and finish times. And then we have the kind of gold here, which is the workshop comments. And that's how we actually got that Zoom, those Zoom details sent through to you. Now, the way that we automated that, so obviously upon enrollment or booking onto the course, you would have received a similar looking template with the Zoom details as well. But what we want to ensure is that people aren't scrambling through their emails to try and find that Zoom meeting link. So we want to send them an automated reminder. So we actually do that via our workflow system. And what I had set up prior to today is if I go into our automated tasks, I had set up a reminder to all send you a reminder via email. So if I jump into webinar reminder and just jump in to update that, I'm just going to show you exactly how this looks. So basically what this is it's sending a workshop template or a workshop email. You could also achieve the same thing via SMS. However, I probably wouldn't suggest sending Zoom details via SMS. I just don't know what that would look like or how effective that would be for your students, but obviously we want them logging in, hopefully on their desktop anyway. So at this point, I could say send to all students who are enrolled, possibly also those that are tentative, but it's completely optional in here who you want to send to. We've then got the template, so aXcelerate webinar-reminder, which is the one I've just shown you with our little workshop comments. And then what we've got here is our trigger and when to run. So you can see here the condition of this sending out to participants is only when they're actually booked onto aXcelerate webinar as a type of workshop. And you can also see here my trigger in which case this is going to send out is 1 day or days before our workshop start date. So you could actually play around with this. It might be hours before, it could be a couple of days before, even a week before. But this is the way that we can basically achieve, without any full-on crazy integration with a conferencing system, a really nice, easy way to get all of our participants online. Ray, any points on that?
Yeah, and look, we also use this same feature to send out the post course or the post webinar survey to say how did you like the session or the survey, and so
Exactly
you
right.
essentially set a trigger for 1 day after the workshop finish date. And so yeah, there's a range of different ways that you can use that tool to automate what would otherwise be manual processes.
Absolutely. Okay, so coming back here, we've got another really important section, and this is all about online assessment. So Ray, do you want to talk about online assessment before I kind of launch into everything this morning?
Yes, look, I guess, and you can probably jump onto the next slide, Kate, but over the last probably 5 years, it's been a passion of ours to really help RTOs with what is probably the biggest single complex process that RTOs have to deal with, which is competency-based assessments, and managing not only the delivery of assessments, but also all of the compliance requirements as well. So we've been steadily working away, building up our capability of assessments and also managing the compliance side. And so what Katie's going to do firstly is to show you through what is our existing functionality. And then when she's finished, I'll step you through some of the things that we're currently working on, which we will be releasing soon.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of different components to our online assessment system. I'm not going to go through every single one, but I will show you the key aspects that our clients are using on a day-to-day basis to be able to assess their students. So something like our online assessments can actually be used in conjunction with or in combination with a SCORM package. So if you wanted to deliver your learning that way via SCORM, but then you actually wanted to assess the students via a written assessment, or could even be a practical, observation checklist assessment or something like that, you can actually use our assessment system to be able to do that as well. So what I'm going to quickly do, I've got my screen open already, so I'm just going to close a couple of these tabs. Now, what you'll see if you are already a user of aXcelerate and you are on our Turbo package is our assessment tab here in the middle. If you're not signed up to Turbo at the moment, you'll have a little star next to the assessment tab. But otherwise, the section I've come into today is our assessment mapping area. And I will get to the mapping shortly. But what we've basically provided our clients the ability to do is author your assessments in aXcelerate. So in terms of authoring an assessment, that might be an online quiz, which could be self-marking. It might be marked by the assessor. It might be half and half, so some multiple choice, some short answer. We can also create observation checklist assessments in here. It could be RPL evidence that you're wanting students to upload. And I guess at a time where it's very hard to deliver face-to-face training, it could be a great way to get students uploading photos or evidence of their skills in particular areas, even if it isn't a proper RPL assessment. There's so many. Essays, written assignments. So I won't go through every single one. I'm going to focus on the quiz today just to give you a bit of an idea as to how that all works. But let me just jump in, and I'm going to show you an example that I'm going to be using today. So it is all about pasta. Let me just open this. I'm just going to jump into a new tab here. One of my favorite things, many foods, but pasta is definitely up there. So I really wanted to show you this example just because we have created this just a 4-question quiz, but it just shows you and demonstrates some of the different types of questions that you could set up in one of these online quizzes. So the first question here, single choice, it's very simple. It's you've got the ability to actually embed video content from YouTube, for example, or a Vimeo video. You could also have an image embedded in there with a couple of kind of X's to get them to label what those are. So there's a whole range of things that you can have within the question itself, even maybe a link to one of the resources, a PDF that's sitting in your resource library. And then down the bottom, if this is a single choice, basically meaning only one of these answers is the correct one. So I could say Italy is the correct answer. As we scroll down, this is a question or an example of what we refer to as gap text. So gap text is probably more commonly used in, say, a paragraph of text where you're getting a student to fill in the gaps or fill in, words or numbers that they might need to fill in to get the answer correct. This is actually all self-marking again by the system as well. And in this case, what we've actually done is we've put a little table, a little invisible table in this question, and we've got images and then we've got a gap text next to it so that it's a labeling exercise. So you can achieve that sort of thing through the tool as well. We also have within the quiz area multiple choice, and so it could be again another question, but instead of just one correct answer, you might actually want the student selecting, or you need the student to select the 3 correct answers as part of getting this question correct or satisfactory. And this last example is one where we've actually got a short answer. This is the only one that is not marked by the system, just because obviously we need to look at the student's answer, assess them, and that is obviously done by our trainer assessor. So what we do provide our trainer assessor is a model answer. So this is probably not the most helpful model answer, but you might have an example or a model answer there that they can actually mark against, some dot points, whatever you feel is going to be helpful for them as they're going through and they're marking these assessments. So once we've created an assessment, I just want to really quickly show you, if we're jumping in here, I'm going to jump into my prepare poultry dishes, which I haven't actually completed yet, but I wanted to give you a sense just how easy this is to create a question and a section and that sort of thing. So if I was starting from scratch, ground zero, this is what it would look like. If I want to go and add a question, it might be a single, true, false, true, false. And I could say duck is one of the many animals, under poultry, for example, or whatever the question might be. And then we would say true as the answer. So it's a very, very easy way, again, to embed media, to embed an image, to embed a link to a resource for them to read prior to jumping in here. And the other thing that I forgot to mention as well is, as part of actually setting up our assessment, all of our assessments have obviously a name and what type of assessments they are. We can also set the number of maximum attempts at the assessment level, so that for a quiz we might give the student 3 attempts to get the question correct, the quiz correct and satisfactory, whereas maybe a written assessment we would only give them 2. Or if you're feeling really you know, nice, you might give them, you know, 10, but who knows. With these attempts as well, with our online quizzes that are self-marking, we do have the build on attempts feature. So it means that if your student is going through a big 30 question quiz and they get 2 wrong, they are not going to have to redo all 30 again, because that would be probably pretty frustrating for them. It will just get them to do the 2 that they actually got incorrect. So that's the other thing I just thought would be a good point to mention. Down here, the only other thing I haven't talked about is our overview, assessor information, and student information. So this is really just more info. So and I'm going to show you this in the portal, but when we do go and open up an assessment, we might want to give our students a little bit of an overview as to what they're about to be assessed on. Some of our clients will actually embed a nice video in here, possibly of the trainer or one of your staff, kind of giving them some guidance prior to starting. So there's a lot that you can do with this overview. Assessor information really is typically used within our observation checklist assessments, just to give our assessors a little bit more of a helping hand prior to jumping in and kind of starting the assessment. And the same with student information. If there's anything on top of what you've given them in the overview in terms of more instructional details, you can pop that into the student information as well. It's completely up to you. But as I said, pretty simple little thing to do. So once we've authored our assessments, the very next thing that we're able to do is actually map our assessments. And this is obviously where the gold is if you've got a spreadsheet at the moment and you're trying to, you know, map all of your assessments within, say, a spreadsheet or a Word document. So what we have the ability to do, if I jump into a particular assessment, maybe the Cert 4 in project management practice, first of all of these assessments, all of these qualifications that I can see in my left-hand panel are actually pulling from my qualification scope. So I have quite a varied scope: animals, air traffic control, and it's just because this is one of our big demo accounts. But obviously in this panel, it would just show you the qualifications of all the units that you have on scope. So if I jump in, I'm actually going to use our Step 4 in project management practice. And if I click on our qualification, I have 19 units of competency under here. And we can see next to each of the 19 units of competency in blue is the number of elements that have actually pulled in directly from training.gov. So if I was to drill into one of these units, I'm actually able to see the elements that have pulled in, the performance criteria underneath those elements. I can actually have a look across at our knowledge evidence, at our assessment conditions. And yeah, so basically if all of those exist against the unit in training.gov, they will pull in to Accelerate and hopefully save you a lot of time. So the way that we map from this point is if I wanted to map, for example, to just this element, or maybe to one of the questions to one of the specific performance criteria underneath the element, what I could do if I jump into my past a quiz. So if I click on my quiz, it's actually going to expose all of my questions. And so what I can do is simply drag and drop, and that's going to create my mapping relationship. So the idea is that you do map down to the level of the elements, performance criteria, and so on. I guess because we're seeing a lot of clients trying to move online as quickly as possible at the moment, the other option that you have, which obviously saves a little bit of time, is just to map directly to the unit. So in that case, what you can do is actually just drag a whole assessment across to one of the units to create that mapping, and then maybe go back when you've got a little bit more time up your sleeve to go and do all of the other mapping down to those other levels that you can get down to. All right, so now I'm going to go into our learner portal, and I'm actually going to show you what one of these assessments looks like for a learner. And all this food is making me hungry, but we have themed it very much the commercial cookery or food theme today. So you've probably seen down the bottom here, as I've been going through some of the other demonstration aspects, that we have this pasta quiz sitting here. So I am going to jump into that and just kind of demonstrate what that looks like. So let's jump in. Now, the other thing that you can probably see, we do have kind of like a default little symbol against every one of our assessments or against our different types of assessments, but you actually have the ability to go in and upload or have a little image URL linking to a nice little image. This is our overview that I was talking about. So if you do want to put in a little video here, if you want to put in some instructions, you can easily do that. But otherwise, I can jump straight in and I'm actually on attempt 5, clearly don't know anything about pasta. But as I scroll down or come down the list of questions here, you can see they're those same questions as what I was looking at in our authoring tool. So I could go through and I could say, Italy is my answer for this one. I can hit save, I can hit next. I'm actually going to go and fill this out just so that I can show you what the marking looks like within aXcelerate. So obviously got that one right. And then we've got our example of the multiple choice, where it's multiple correct answers. So I just wanted to stop here and just give you a really quick, if I hadn't said this before, this learner portal is mobile responsive, tablet responsive. So if you are wanting your students to just go ahead, or if they're wanting to do their assessments on their phone, if I try and just change the screen size really quickly, you can see how much it actually scales down. So that's just another really important thing, which makes it so much easier, particularly for something like a quiz, for a student to just go ahead and just do on their phone if they don't want to log in to the desktop version. All right, next one. And then my final one, which is my little answer. So I'm literally just going to put in ABCD, very inventive. I'm going to hit save and I'm going to submit my assessment, submit, and that's all gone. And I can jump back to my overview at this point. One little tiny little thing, which is kind of one of my favorite things about the portal before we jump into the marking, just because I won't be coming back in here. We actually have a night mode, which I haven't enabled yet, but there's our little night mode. So if your students prefer, if they're on their phone and they're doing that quiz, to actually do it in night mode rather than in the lighter mode, they can do that. There's also a lot of customizing of themes. So if I wanted to have a bubblegum pink theme rather than my green theme, you know, as a student, I can go and set that myself. So just some cool little things that I wanted to show you to do with our new learner portal as well. All right, so I'm going to jump back into aXcelerate, and I'm going to show you what the marking looks like for one of our trainers. So if I jump very quickly into my assessment management. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the kind of logging in as a trainer. I'm going to just open this as an admin, but be aware that, you know, there's all sorts of automation. So as soon as I've finished a quiz and I've got Tony Jones assigned as my trainer, Tony's going to get an email notifying him that something's been submitted or that my work has been submitted. We also have widgets. Widgets are these little kind of boxes on my dashboard, which will give me an indication of different things. We do have specific widgets for trainers so that they can ensure they're seeing all online assessments that have been completed that they now need to mark. So every time they log in to aXcelerate, that's going to hit them in the face so that they can see exactly what they need to do on a day-to-day basis in case they miss the email. But otherwise, I'm going to quickly jump into Robert Akers, who's my student, and I'm going to mark his pasta quiz very quickly in here. And so Robert's a little bit by himself at the moment. He hasn't got any other learners in here, but I'm just going to use this example because it needs marking. But normally what this would show us is how many learners from this particular instance or this class are actually enrolled into this assessment, how many are in progress, how many have submitted, how many have completed. We're going to get a list of all of those learners down here. We also tend to get a little bit of some kind of just light analytics on the question types as well, or the actual highest performing question, the lowest performing question. And then over in this left-hand side panel, we're actually going to then be able to see all of the students and where they're up to. So who needs marking, who are we awaiting a submission from, whose marking is finalized. So I'm going to jump into Robert Akers as a student very quickly. And we can actually collapse this little side panel if it makes it a bit bigger for us to mark. But kind of starting from left to right, what you can see here is the number of attempts, first of all. So you can see exactly what time and date each of those attempts happened by that student. So you can see I've really been trying now for a couple of months, but I'm still not getting there. As I scroll down, we can also see straight away that the system has already marked quite a few of those questions. So it knows straight away that I only got 2 of those 3 self-marking questions correct. Maybe I had a spello in the gap text question. Maybe that's why it's marked me wrong, or yeah, that I wasn't satisfactory. So let's jump in now, and I'm just going to give you an idea as to how this works. So obviously with something self-marking, there's not much to do in here, but where I have got something that is unsatisfactory, like this particular one here, I might want to provide some feedback to our students. So with feedback in aXcelerate, or at least within the marking area, you will see attempt feedback up the top here, attempt evidence, attempt notes. You'll actually have that all at the individual question levels as well. So if you want to be providing feedback at the individual question level, you would be doing it down here. So I could say, great job. However, you didn't spell this correctly, or you clearly don't know what the answers are. So I could go through, I could save that feedback, keep going. I've got another self-marking question that I got correct. And then down here, this is our example of a short answer. So I've got my little student's short answer here, the ABCD. I've got my model answer, which might be a little bit more extensive normally. And at this point, I can go through, provide feedback, and either decide whether they're satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and just completely finish my, finalize my marking. So as I said, if we did have any attempt feedback we wanted to provide, any additional evidence that we're uploading as a trainer assessor, or if we did have any internal notes, things that we don't necessarily want our student to see, but maybe it's you know, important for the rest of our team to be aware of for this particular assessment. I'm not sure what case you might use that, maybe where a student is really struggling and might need a call from one of the student support team members, for example. But that's basically how we would mark an assessment. So I'm going to jump back into our slides very quickly. And we've got down here, I think I've gone into, yep, assessment marking. The trainer app is another thing. So I guess aside from all of what I've just shown you in terms of the assessment management, we've also developed a trainer app. Now this has been developed iOS and Android friendly. It's both an online and offline app as well. And we've built this app to address quite a common problem for some RTOs, which is having to use paper for an observation checklist. So you're in front of a student, you're in the classroom, or you're wherever, you know, maybe up high somewhere, or out at sea, or underground in a mine shaft, for example, and we're trying to mark an observation checklist assessment. So commonly that's done just with a checkbox tick and flick type exercise using paper. But what we wanted to try and provide trainers is with the ability to pull out their phone or a tablet and actually have all of their courses, be able to mark attendance, but also mark the very important practicals where we're trying to capture evidence that the student can actually do what they're supposed to be doing for that unit of competency or for that assessment. So I can see here, this is just kind of like a high level screenshot, but at every one of our observation points, our trainer or assessor would actually be able to take photos or a video of the student performing something. They can also sign off. They can hand their phone or their iPad to the student to sign on that as well. And all of that is being uploaded into aXcelerate and all being stored against that assessment within aXcelerate. So I just have a little example, Paradigm Training, one of our clients on the Gold Coast, they specialize very much in the maritime space. So they're out at sea a lot of the time. And I know that they have been using this app in kind of a hard shell so that the iPad doesn't break or anything like that. It might even be waterproof. But they're actually using it where they don't have Wi-Fi, again, miles out at sea. And as soon as they then come back in, where they do connect back up to the Wi-Fi or to the internet, all of that evidence is being uploaded into aXcelerate. So any other points there, Ray, that you want to add that I may have forgotten about? Oh yeah, I do need to talk about these as well, but any other points on the trainer app?
Yeah, I guess what we're in the process of doing further development of the trainer app to enable trainers to access even more information about their students, the courses that they're enrolled in, the progression through not only assessments, marking assessments and attendance, but also progression through the units. So there's a lot of things that we're working on at the moment, which
bubbling away under the surface.
To the next level, yes.
That's right. Okay, so the very last thing that I want to talk about is if you don't have time or you don't want to go down the road of building out your actual assessments the way that I've just demonstrated, I guess the simplest way to get learning online, but also assessments online, is using the old-fashioned download upload method. So if you're just looking for a very quick way, and if you've got learners that need their assessments or need access to these resources very quickly, this is the most simple way to do that. So the way that you can achieve this, again, is using our resources library in the system. You can actually see some examples here where I have admin assessment, assessment task sheet, for example. And what I would be suggesting is every one of these assessments, or every one of these resources actually, has this little button over the far right-hand side, and that actually links back to that assessment. So very commonly our clients will use this for things like student handbooks, where they have the link sitting on their website. As soon as they click it, the student is downloading the very newest version directly from directly from the resources library. So the same thing applies. If we were just to upload, it might be a Word document with all the questions on it, for example, that we want them just simply downloading, filling in, and when they're done, uploading it again, which saves us from copying and pasting all those questions into aXcelerate. We could, again, use our online assessment tools. So if I was to jump into, say, here, I might say, click maybe to complete this assessment, click here, and I won't type out the whole thing, but obviously you can have a few more instructions there. But what we can include is a link, and I can click OK. And the other thing about this type of assessment is we would be setting this up as a written assessment, or there's a couple of other options that you've got there, so that when the student does come back into the assessment after they've clicked the download and they've downloaded that resource, there's actually an area for them to upload as well, which is obviously the key here. So that's the only other thing I wanted to just talk about, is if you are wanting just a really quick way, that is by far the quickest, just because you're not having to create the questions. But if you do have a little bit more time up your sleeve, it is such a nice interactive experience for your students to, instead of downloading a Word doc, actually go through online. So you've got a couple of options there. All right, Ray, I'm sorry, I've been talking and talking and talking. Would you like to add anything before you jump into the roadmap?
No, let's jump straight in, Kate.
Oh, awesome. All right, so I'm sharing my screen still, so.
All right, fantastic. So what I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes to give you an idea of some of the things that we're working on right now and are planning to deliver over the coming months, which can extend the existing capabilities of the e-learning and assessments functionality to the next level. So Kate, if you just jump to the next slide. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we're planning to do is to add the learning activity type. So essentially adding e-learning content within the, if you like, the assessment authoring, but in fact to make it a pure learning content creation area. So that means you'll be able to create e-learning content, and if you want, you can add some questions, but they won't be the discrete standalone summative assessments. So it means that you could have some learning content with video, with text, with images, and so forth, with links, but also include some questions as well to help the learner with their formative assessment. So on the next page, on the next slide, one of the ways that we're planning to offer the authoring capability is to simply author the content based on the unit, and so have a unit that you can actually provide a sequence of the key learning activities and assessments that are required in order to complete that unit. Alternatively, and the next slide, Kate, is the ability to be able to create modules and to be able to link modules to one or more units of competency. So there's a lot of RTOs that prefer to deliver e-learning by creating modules or subjects of learning, having topics, and then having assessments.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kate?
Sorry, I was just going to say, or clusters is another way. But
Yeah. So clusters, but having the, if you like, the mapping or the relationship to the units sort of in the background, so that the user or the learner is focusing on the learning pathway rather than the relationship to the units that they're studying. Of course, they're either studying a skill set or some sort of micro-credential or qualification, but it's providing the, I guess, e-learning author with a couple of different ways to actually structure their course. So then from the learner's perspective, the next slide, the learner will be able to easily see their progression through the learning content, just like in a traditional e-learning setting. The other thing that we're doing is adding some additional question types. So we've got the hotspot question type, which will enable authors to, for example, have an image and get the learners to either point on a point in the image and actually, or they can actually write what is the particular point, what is that particular part of the image, what is it representing. So that's coming. The other one that we're working on is the match question. So you can match, say, a text with an image, or a text with text, yeah, or image with image. And then the final one that we're working on is the order question. So just being able to reorder things in the correct sequence to achieve the outcome for the question.
Procedures and that sort of thing that you might want people dragging into the right order. That's right.
Cool. And then, so what we're then going to focus on is item pools and the ability to create an item. And when we say an item can be a question, which is part of an assessment, or it's a selection criteria item. So it could be a performance criteria, a related item that's used in an observation checklist type of assessment. And so item is a generic term for both, if you like, items and questions, but essentially the ability to have a pool of those items. It's sometimes referred to as a question bank in other learning management systems, but essentially a pool that you can draw on to build your assessments quickly and easily. And we'll also provide some tagging so you can actually create groups of items that you can choose from when you're creating your assessments, and the ability to actually reuse items in multiple different assessments, so that if you edit that item, you'll edit it in multiple different assessments at the one time. You don't have to go into each assessment. The other important thing that we're extending in terms of items and questions is the ability to have substitutes. So, and randomization of substitutes for different questions.
And that was one of the points I actually forgot to mention. When you are creating a quiz, at the moment you can't shuffle the questions, but you can actually shuffle the answers, so that every time a student undertakes that quiz, they're actually going to get different answers, or different orders in which the possible answers are given to them as well.
That's right. So this will be extending it that step further to actually randomize the different substitutes for a specific question.
Yeah.
We've been working very hard on our new learner app, which is a completely, it's a complete mobile app, but it's online, offline for both Android and iOS. And really what we've tried to focus on is design, and really making the user experience as beautiful as we can, so that students really enjoy using the app, that they don't get frustrated, that it's very intuitive and gives them all of the information that they need, whether it's the units or the course material, or whether it's the activities that they're undertaking as part of a work placement, whether it's attendance that they are recording, all of those functions in the palm of their hands, so that they can essentially interact with all of the information in a very intuitive and easy way. The next one is if you like, complementary to that. We're calling it the aXcelerate app, but it's essentially, it's an app, a multi-purpose app, a multi-role app that could be used by trainers, assessors, supervisors, employers, or even administrators while they're on the go, to be able to do things like search for a student, look at their enrollment, look at their progress through units, look at their assessments, look at their progress through assessments, do things like sign off their attendance. So that's going to be very handy for work placements and supervisors when we get work placements back up and running. So if you look at the next page, is just another example of some of the design work that we're actually in the process of developing right now. So what I'm showing you is right around the corner, and we're very excited about what we're going to be releasing to all of our clients and the marketplace. So the next one is work placements. And I guess as part of any work placements program, and for those of you who do offer work placements, which is becoming more and more important as part of vocational education and training, and whether it's work placements or whether it's call it work-based learning or on-the-job training, being able to place students with employers and being able to track all of that is quite a complex process. So for workplace coordinators, work placements coordinators rather, or administrators, this is going to be a real godsend. The ability to be able to track your work placements. The next slide, host employers, having one place to set up all of your host employers, whether you've got a host employer that's got one or maybe more students that are undertaking work placements. And the next slide, the ability to very quickly and easily bring up a single individual student, in this case Matthew Jones, and be able to see all of their work placement log entries, the details of the work placement, and also what their schedule is. When are they actually going to be attending the work placement days based on the schedule that you've set up for the student. So lots of things that we're working on at the moment, and we're looking forward to rolling these out in the coming months.
That's right. And just on this last screen here, as Ray was explaining the Learner app, you may have explained this and I just missed it, Ray, but I guess one of the primary reasons we're building this Learner app, obviously we've got this nice mobile friendly learner portal, but we really did want to give our students, or your students, sorry, something to be using, yeah, online, but also offline, and obviously as an app, you know, it's the best way to do that. But also, I guess a key feature is being able to log or create logs within kind of a logbook. So that hopefully if you're using paper or your students are having to carry around a paper-based logbook, this completely, you know, this can completely overhaul it. And I guess it's not limited. I've had lots of conversations with different clients, different people in the industry about what we're kind of creating. And I don't think it's kind of limited to work placements as such. As Ray said, you know, if you've got any sort of learning that happens on the job, or if they are doing any learning on the job and they want to be capturing that as evidence of their, you know, ability to do something, this is a great way to do that. So
yeah, absolutely perfect for traineeships, apprenticeships, or other work-based learning where you're wanting the student to record time, to capture evidence, video evidence, photo evidence, voice evidence. It's going to do everything.
Yeah.
So that sort of brings us really to question time. So we're really excited. We've got lots and lots of questions. So Isaac, we might actually hand over to you to
hit us with some questions.
Yeah, no, it was. I just want to thank everyone for firstly, you know, all their questions. And I also want to thank Dujane. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he took the initiative and came through with some answers, but I will go through all the questions anyway, just in case so we don't miss anyone's question, essentially.
Awesome.
Okay, so just to start with, Kirsty asked, can H5P be used instead of Articulate, OFR, Captivate?
Yes, so H5P is an HTML5 content creation system. And the short answer is no, you can't just use that content and just import it into aXcelerate, but it's certainly something that we're looking at and we've got on our roadmap. The quickest and easiest way at the moment would be to create your content in Articulate or Captivate or some other SCORM or XAPI compliant tool.
Excellent. Okay, next question is from Frank, and he asked, can you add animations? And this was back earlier in the webinar.
Look,
sorry,
you go. The short answer is yes. If it's a GIF and it's an animation, yes, there's another content type that can be used, and you can even use them in the little icons beside the learning content before a learner launches that content. So yes, I believe you can use animations.
I'm pretty sure I remember an example that one of our UI designers had where he had a dog kind of moving, and it was one of the placeholders. So I can almost guarantee that you can do that.
Yeah. Okay. Next one.
And another one from Frank, for online learning, do we set up individual students with a domain?
No.
No, but I will answer the question just around, I guess, how students get access to our portal. Maybe it was along those lines. So the way that, and if it's not, hopefully this will just give you a little bit more information. The way that our learner portal works is that as soon as I'm enrolled as a student, well, this is one of the many settings that we have. As soon as I'm enrolled, say, into the Cert 4 in Commercial Cookery, into that class or into a workshop, or short course, I'm actually automatically sent username and password details from aXcelerate. And you can go in, you can go and customize the template that the student's going to receive so that you can give them some instructions in there. You might even have some little instructions under the announcements area, for example. But yeah, everyone is automatically sent out their own details.
Yeah, and I think it is important to note that you probably can see from the URL in Katie's browser that the URL is admin.accelerate.com.au/learner. So it is a unique URL that your learners will be taken to, and when they put in their credentials, they will see their learning.
Absolutely. All right, Isaac.
Okay. Now, Pinky had a few questions, and these are the ones that I think that Dujan helped with, but I will read them out anyway. My question comes from importing already available learning materials. Can this be done directly via the folder upload, or does one have to have SCORM in terms of delivering learning in aXcelerate?
Is this along the lines, it sounds like this might be kind of what we talked about in terms of SCORM versus kind of resources. So if you've already got those resources as a Word doc or as a PDF, the ability to upload them and still have your students receive them. I don't know if that's exactly what the...
Yeah, I think that's what Pinky's referring to. You can take your existing materials, whether it's a PDF, it might be a video, a Word doc or a PowerPoint, and you can have the student download or open that material as a resource. But if you want the true interactive e-learning, then that's a separate feature, the SCORM XAPI e-learning capability, and that will provide the true e-learning experience based on an uploaded SCORM package.
Excellent. Another one from Pinky. Can I clarify that the workshop template can be sent to students as a reminder for virtual e-learning, not necessarily for a face-to-face workshop?
Can you just read that again, Isaac, for me? Sorry.
Can I clarify that the workshop template can be sent to a student as a reminder for virtual e-learning, or virtual/e-learning, not necessarily for a face-to-face workshop?
Yeah, so I'm assuming there that virtual e-learning is like a classroom, and if that's the case, yes, it can. If it's just to remind them about e-learning, which is sitting in their portal ready to do, no, there's no time triggers, and that's because e-learning is normally up to the student when they actually undertake that.
You can, with our e-learning, if it is related back to a unit, you will have kind of the start and finish dates, which generally get applied to the e-learning from being applied, or whatever dates are against the unit of competency. So I have assisted other clients to set up automations, particularly where e-learning hasn't been completed by the due date, or you know, it's coming up to our expected completion date of that unit is next week, and the e-learning hasn't been completed. So there are a few automated emails and SMSs that you could potentially set up for things that haven't been completed yet, or just giving them a notification. Yeah, so sorry, that was...
No, it definitely can be done.
Yeah.
And then the last one from Pinky was, may I ask what's the difference between the workflow and the workshop templates in terms of functionality and or its key aspects?
Yeah, so I guess the only difference they're actually one and the same in terms of the actual template we're using. So it's really just the difference of being able to send one manually from the workshop itself. So if I was looking at, let me just go into a provide first aid or provide CPR course, for example, and I'm going to go into one where I've got 2 people enrolled. So what we have the ability to do in here very quickly is go template and send out a template from here, which might be could be a booking confirmation or something like that. But the other thing that we can do, and obviously down here, instead of having well, actually, as well as this information, you could easily have the Zoom details in here. You can also be emailing and sending SMSs from mail outs directly just to the group, but this is all manual. So the only difference with workflow is that we can set this up at the beginning, so that, well, not even at the beginning, but just at the beginning of time, so that every workshop that you have of this type can have those automated reminders just going out. So it just makes things a little easier, but there's not too much difference between them.
Okay. Question from Jonathan. My students do not have access to student portals. And in brackets, he said, not very computer savvy. Is it possible to upload the learning and provide a once-off link for the student to complete on aXcelerate?
The kind of answer is yes and no. I guess there's no way to send a link out to a learner to say, do this assessment, and then it'll come back into aXcelerate. But you could definitely, if you find it very hard to get your learners using some sort of online portal or something like that, you could have a email that's sent out to all of your learners, and you could actually have many hyperlinks. So it could be, say, 4 or 5 different hyperlinks directly pulling the resources in from your resources library. So you might have workbooks, you might have an assessment, and then that might make it a little easier to get the info to them. If they weren't logging into a portal, really the only way that they could get that back to you, though, is via email or handing it to you. So the idea would hopefully be that we could get them using the learner portal, where they can go and access those resources, download them, fill them in, or actually complete assessment via the portal. But yeah, of course, there's other ways that you could get that info to them. It would just might not be as streamlined.
Okay. Oh, I've lost where I am at, sorry. A question from Pooja. Is there a charge for the learner portal?
No. So the learner portal is on our standard package, it's on our turbo package. We have a lot of what we've gone through today in terms of assessments is part of our turbo functionality. You can use our SCORM engine on standard and on turbo, but there is a little small price per learner just because of the way that we've set up that SCORM package. So that's the only thing to be aware of with SCORM, resources, and obviously with online assessments. Yeah, if you are just wanting to allow students to access resources where they're downloading, uploading, that's part of our standard package and it's all included. So,
yeah.
Excellent.
Sorry, Ray, I keep answering these questions.
No, good, go for it.
A question from David. When the booking email is sent out, can it indicate multiple time zones?
Short answer is no. Yeah, you probably have to. Like we have, an easy way, because we're based in Queensland. I know it's a little bit annoying for other people that might be in WA, for example, but we have, what did I have in here? Webinar or just booking. I would normally have our time zone. So if your business is based in Queensland, if it's based in New South Wales, we typically set up our workshops in our own time zone, and basically just, you've got the time, and then in the template, you just have in brackets, which you might see AEST, for example, for Queensland. That's kind of the easiest way to get around it, because we don't have the same sort of functions as Google, where it can automatically detect where you are and change the times. It's just not something that we have right now.
Okay. Question from, got 2 questions from Jody. If your assessments if your assessment questions are in the SCORM package, how do they come across?
Yeah, so another really, really good question. I guess with any questions that are within your SCORM package, we'd probably very much treat those as formative questions, not summative assessments. So you're really just, if you've embedded a quiz within the SCORM file, I mean, if you've assessed them and you've answered, the student's gone through 20 questions, for example, and they've got to the end of that quiz and they've got it, they've ticked it off, they've completed it, we'd assume that they would then have answered those questions. But yeah, the idea would not be to put any sort of open short response type questions into that SCORM file, because there's no way to pull that data back into aXcelerate or really I don't think, into any,
Yeah,
I'm not sure, Ray, what do you think?
I'll just add to that and say that normally within the content authoring platforms, they give you the ability to identify how the completion of the package is going to be tracked. For example, it could be that you want to create the rule that the completion means that they've undertaken all of the, if you like, the modules or gone right throughout the whole course, and that's the completion. It could be that completion is actually passing the quiz that you've created within that e-learning package, and you can either create, if you like, a pass-fail or a complete incomplete. So it's those authoring tools which will give you those options, and then based on how you've set up that, if you like, that outcome which you're wanting the package to track.
Yeah.
That information, that result from, if the student launches that SCORM e-learning, it will actually pull that result back into aXcelerate to say, yes, they've complete, or they haven't complete, or pass or fail. And that's what's recorded as part of that experience API outcome, if you like.
Okay. And then the second question from Jody was, can you override an automatically marked question that is marked as unsatisfactory in an assessment? The answer may be correct, but not exactly the same as the expected response, and it marks them wrong.
Yes, the answer to that is yes. So when we first started this, no, but I think through our learning very early on, we had the suggestion that, yeah, a trainer or an assessor needed to be able to override a student's answer. For example, I've written there the wrong way in a gap text and I've got the question wrong because that's all self-marking. So yeah, within those tools, within the actual management marking tools, you can definitely override. I'll just try and pull up an example. My passed a quiz very quickly. Let me just jump in here, and I've actually finalized this, but yeah, you'd basically be just choosing satisfactory to override it.
Okay.
But aXcelerate records that was done, so in an activity log, so that we know that there was an override of that question being marked correct when it wasn't.
It wasn't, yeah, to begin with.
And a reason why.
Yeah.
Okay. We are getting new questions as well as this comes through. So
all right, we might need to go. We'll try and speed up our answers.
We'll go. Yeah. Okay. Right. So the second question from Emma, our assessments can have a lot of questions. If we use online assessments, can students start their assessments, save it, and then log in and finish the question later?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, as long as what they're doing is they're you know, if I was going through this pasta quiz and I go, or I've actually fully submitted that now, but as another example, yeah, I've now got my RPL. I don't know if I can go in and kind of show you. So this is an example of an RPL. If I've gone in and I've uploaded things here, hit the save button. The save is the key. As long as they've hit save before going on to the next one, they've uploaded, hit save, and then I get out of it, it will have saved where I'm up to. But if they have kind of answered or they've been clicking in a weird way and they've just got out of it, no. So you've just got to make sure that they're saving as they go.
Yep. Kath asked, is it possible to switch between marking / observing multiple students on the trainer app?
Yeah, yes, you can. So I guess the way that we've designed the app is that you can narrow just into one student and just mark their observation checklist from start to finish. You can also be looking at the observation checklist by item. So if you had a whole classroom full of students and you wanted to tick off the first item for every one of them, you would basically go and observe them all and then move on to the next item.
The other thing that we've done is with observation checklists, if you have, so let's say you had an observation checklist with 20 items, but you've grouped them as 4 groups of 5 items. And so each of those groups has a section header with 5 items under them. You can either individually tick each item, or if you like, you can tick those 5 items which have been done as part of, say, that section just with a single click. So we've given you some
kind of bulk
features.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. One more? Or did you want to do this one?
No.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, one of them is, when will all the enhancements be available that we're looking at? Will it be weeks or months? Look, it will be months, but we're looking to really roll out some significant changes in the July-August timeframe. Certainly, we're planning to have some beta testing happening in the June timeframe. So not too much longer to wait, but yeah, a little bit longer to get all of those features that I was showing you.
Okay. Just a quick mention, Gilmore, he had an issue with accessing the SCORM page and received an error. He then quickly followed up with our CS team, and just a tip, if anyone else encounters this, to enable SCORM/tin can e-learning in your account, please contact the our CS team. So just if anyone, has that issue, just wanted to cover that basis.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Okay. A question from Dujan. Can assessments be built and imported into other systems? Example, creating assessments on behalf of RTOs.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
But yeah, I guess that would be, like we've talked about it. We've talked about having even, pre-built from, say, a content provider assessments in an account that we can just kind of pop into clients' accounts. But at the moment, we're just trying to kind of enhance it as much as we can before looking at that sort of function. So yeah, there's no real easy way to do that. You'd have to basically have two screens open and just be copying and pasting what you've got, which obviously is not ideal, but it's the only real way that you can do it without actually logging into that other person's account.
Okay. David had a question. Can trainers be notified when a student accesses a resource such as a learner guide?
Look, the short answer is at the moment, no, because a resource is just like a file that they'll just click on and download and open. So there's no tracking of that, but it's definitely something that we could build in as an enhancement. An alternative to that, which you could use straight away, is that there are some authoring tools which enable you to import PDFs and Word documents or PowerPoint slides and publish them as a SCORM object, right? And so if you then take that SCORM object, which is your learner guide, and you upload that into aXcelerate, there could be an automation that could trigger an email to say a trainer to say that student had launched that. But that's something we'll have to look into and get back to David about specifically. So it's not a definite, but it's a possibility.
Okay. How far away is the aXcelerate authoring for e-learning content? This is from Brendan. Did we answer that before, Ray? Well,
the authoring for assessments is there, but we're adding to the assessment capability with new questions, the item pool, question variations, and that's coming over the next 3 to 4 months.
I think Brendan may have been talking about what we referred to in terms of actually creating learning within our system as opposed to just assessments.
Right, yeah.
Which is definitely something that we're working
on right now.
It's in the mix, yeah. But it's definitely still probably a couple of months rather than weeks at the moment, unfortunately.
Okay. Another question from Matt. He asks, how does the volume of content in the e-learning space relate to the AQF guidelines of delivery hours? i.e. a Cert 3 has an AQF guideline of 1,000 delivery hours. How do we quantify this in an online space?
Yeah, look, I think
that's a good question.
Hey?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. And look, I'm going to be really honest and say that is beyond the scope of this webinar. I can take that one on notice, and we can talk to one of our RTO consultants who specializes on volume of learning and how e-learning contributes to volume of learning. But that's, yeah, I'll take that one on notice and get back to the attendee.
Okay. A question from Dawn. If assessments are completed via Zoom, etc., and recorded, can this be uploaded to the student and multiple student record? Oh, sorry. Can this be uploaded to the student and multiple student records?
Yeah, I guess you could. I mean, Zoom is kind of cool in the fact that it does provide you with a link to the recording. So that's what I use a lot of the time. But the only thing about those links is I don't know that they're permanent. I think they do have an expiry date on them. The only thing you basically need to do is fully download that file. And depending on how long you were online for, those files can get pretty big because they're full video, full audio. The short answer is yes, you can actually go and upload that. Because when we're in an assessment, I've actually got this attempt evidence. So some of our clients, you know, for whatever reason, they've had to print the assessment out for a student to do it, say a quiz, because they haven't been able to use a computer to do it, or it could be video or photo evidence. The assessor can drag and drop a file here. You've just got to be wary of the file sizes, because obviously a 2-hour-long demonstration, it may not be 2 hours, but even a 30-minute full video file is probably going to eat up some of that file storage that you've got.
Yeah, and just, I think it's worth noting that we provide the first 200 gigabytes of storage free of charge, but we do charge for storage over the first 200 gigabytes. So there's quite a lot. That 200 gigabytes is going to get you a fair way down the track. But if you do start uploading high definition videos and that sort of thing for every single student, for every single assessment, then if you do go over that, you can simply purchase an extra, I think it's
$200 for $100, so it's
$110 or something. So it's very cost effective storage.
All right, Isaac, sorry, back to you.
That's okay, that's okay. So a question from Casey. Is there any thought to adding communications directly via the learner portal? There
is. Should I show everyone my screen very quickly? So something else that we're doing as part of our app. So this is just another little slide deck that I've got here, but these are some of our app designs that Ray was showing you earlier. I guess one of those things that we're really wanting to incorporate, and I'll talk about two different things, is announcements, notifications. You would have seen announcements over the right-hand side of my learner portal. I guess through this app, we're designing it in such a way that if you have put up a notification, they can be pushed rather than texting or emailing the student every time you want to tell them something. In terms of messages or support, this is a massive thing that it's very evident that RTOs need a way for a student to be able to nicely communicate with a trainer and with an admin team member, for example, but for all of that to be visible to everyone. And I think there's a lot of back and forth emailing that goes on between students and trainers, but also trying to use something like Facebook to facilitate that as well. And so, yeah, we are incorporating messages or an inbox into our app. I believe that would eventually extend to our learner portal online as well, Ray.
Yes, but it would be available in the app in the first instance.
Yeah, it's definitely something we're looking at. Thanks, Isaac.
Okay, Linda had a question. At the moment, the system auto assigns the numbering each time we add a new question. Example, question 1, question 2. Our assessments have different terminologies in the projects. Part A, section 1, task 1. Is there a setting in the back end that will allow us to override this?
At the moment, no, but that's a great idea, and we'll certainly look at how that could be facilitated. So yeah, we'll just
take note of that one.
Details, and we'll find out what's the best way to incorporate that, or whether there's a workaround that we could provide in the meantime.
Yeah.
Okay. A question from Brendan. What support is available if you start setting up learning with aXcelerate? If you have questions as you go, can you reach tech support?
Yeah, so I'll talk to this one. So in terms of getting started with online assessments, if this is your first time setting up anything online, Obviously, I mean, we've kind of stepped through it, but we've been skipping over a few details just for the sake of this webinar. We have actually got some very good videos on all of our online assessment, I guess, features or functions. So we actually call these shots, which are short hits of training. So if I drill into shots, that actually opens up our learning guide or our sort of support resource area. And you can see here for online assessments, we've got a whole series of just short little videos so that you're not having to sit through an hour and a half webinar, which is exactly what we're doing now. But you know, you can actually have a look and see exactly what you might need to learn how to set up. That's probably what I would do in the first instance, just because those videos are really helpful. And if you do follow them step by step, that would probably be the best way to go. If you do struggle, you do have, every one of our clients has a customer success manager or an account manager that they could contact with some of those questions. If it kind of comes across that maybe you do need a little bit more help than a couple of questions, or it might span more than, say, a 15-minute call, we probably suggest some training to you, maybe even just for an hour, to help you get all of that up and running. But otherwise, we've got a lot of videos, we've got a lot of help as well. So if I type in assessments and just hit answer and look at online assessment authoring, for example, you can see the number of topics that we have down the right-hand side here with embedded videos. So there's a lot of information in here that we provide as well.
Excellent. Scott had a question. Our RTO only trains in first aid units of competency. We are just using the multiple choice quiz, just using multiple choice quiz in our face-to-face workshops. Would be best using the aXcelerate in-house quiz or purchasing an external learning tool?
I can tell you we have definitely multiple first aid providers that deliver to tens of thousands of students that will just use our online quiz. So if you've already got a quiz and you can copy and paste it, you could literally pop all of that in here. As soon as your students, if they're booking online, book online and kind of go through to aXcelerate, get booked onto the workshop, they would automatically then be pushed the details to complete the online learning. And you can also specify that in the email to make sure that they do that. And then all that's left is coming in to actually do the practical observation and obviously a little bit of theory, whatever you might need to do with them on the day. But that's what a lot of our providers will do. The other thing about first aid is that if you create the whole CPR quiz, because you might also deliver CPR as a standalone, all of these assessments can be duplicated and then changed. So a really great example of that is where we would have a CPR quiz. We'd then duplicate that quiz so that we preserve all those questions and then add all of our first aid questions to them as well. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Great. Pinky had a question again. Let's say international e-learning students, I would like them to do their LLN assessment online first prior to their units being released. What would be the best practice, the best place / section for this to be uploaded to one of the e-learning platform? Also, where can the section be for showing how they worked out the math questions?
Yeah, so LLN is an interesting one. We don't, out of the box at the moment, have an LLN solution. We're definitely looking at that. If you have purchased some form of quiz or you've got that in e-learning or something, I guess what the work that we're doing around being able to set up more of a learning plan for the student would actually provide a little bit of a, you know, have the LLN as a prerequisite prior to then allowing the student to start anything more. So right now that's not available, but I think that that would probably be the best way to go when it is available.
So Frank just asked, can we upload our own LLN? And that was no to that one?
Well,
oh, you can. No, you definitely can. Yeah.
If it is in SCORM content. But,
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Another one from Pinky. Would the team by any chance have fun testing tutorials, exercises I can use for my training team at the next trainers workshop?
I mean, we could give you access to one of our demo accounts, and there's definitely quizzes in there. And what might be good for us to reach out to you after this session. So Isaac, if you can just take note of that particular question, we will actually reach out to that person after this and just maybe chat to them about what we could provide you to help you with your trainer training.
Okay, sounds great. Another question, this one is from Catalina. If we load our assessments onto aXcelerate, are they guaranteed to be safe and not to be shared or accessed by other RTOs, etc.?
Sorry, what was that again, Isaac?
Oh, sorry.
Definitely not. It's like any data in aXcelerate. Every single client has their own partition within the system, and no one can access any data, whether it's student data, course data, assessment data, or any other data.
Okay.
Lockdown.
Just going through the final few questions.
Yeah, I'm just having a look now too. Are you able to send out the costs involved with setting this up in an email link with this recording? Yeah, we can definitely send. So yeah, we can, this is all being recorded at the moment, so we can definitely send the link out to everyone that is participating or that has booked on, and we can include links to our website where we've got all of our turbo pricing as well. I'm just scrolling down the list. There's a few comments which aren't necessarily questions, which are amazing. Thank you for popping them in there as well. Let me just see if I can see, does aXcelerate link to Moodle? Kirsty Brown said, it does aXcelerate link to Moodle. Yes, it does link to Moodle. So we haven't talked about Moodle today, but it's definitely a really great solution if you don't want to go down the road of SCORM, online assessments, that sort of thing in aXcelerate. And so you can see from my system, I'm actually connected to Moodle at the moment, as well as Canvas, which is another LMS system out there in the market. And so the way that Moodle works is a very similar way to how we linked the SCORM package up to units of competency. The same thing would apply after you've imported all of your Moodle courses. And instead of pushing the student into our learner portal, it would push the student into your Moodle instance. Or we actually have a single sign-on function with Moodle, so that if I was a learner logging into the aXcelerate learner portal, I had learning to do, this could in fact be a Moodle course that I have to do. So I can launch that from my aXcelerate learner portal. Okay, I think we're getting close to the bottom.
Yeah, just a question from David. Is there a voice to text function for students answering questions?
I think not at the moment. I mean, I have actually done that with when playing around with our trainer app, just in the feedback section, just through what Apple gives you. So obviously it may not exactly pick up on what you're saying, but yeah, so I guess, you know, the app that we're developing at the moment for learners, I'd assume if there's a place for them to actually put a comment in, just through Apple or just through whatever the phone is that you're using, typically there's the ability to do that anyway. I don't know, Ray, if you want to talk to that.
Yeah, that would normally come from the native voice recognition plugin or software that's on whatever device you're using, whether it's an Android app or an Apple iOS app or even a Windows desktop. Normally those types of ancillary functions are handled by the operating system that you're using.
Yep. And I've just seen Jay Pope had said we have set up our LLN in online assessments, which is awesome. So there's a couple of examples of ways that you could do that through our solution. I think that's everything. There's probably a few things that we may not have got to. Isaac, did you have any other questions that you had taken note of, or was that basically all of them?
No, there was just that last one from Dujan, that can people build assessments on behalf of other RTOs, like export and import into their system?
Yeah, maybe one day.
No, not at the moment. You'd actually have to be given the credentials for the RTO's account and build those assessments into that account. But that is definitely on our radar, that
something we want to be doing.
Excellent.
All right, well, I think that wraps everything up today. So I just wanted to say thank you. I'm sure Ray will wrap up after my wrap up, but it's been lovely having you all online, and thank you all for sticking around. There's still 80 of you or 70 of you online, almost for 2 hours. So I'm sure probably people need coffee and to refresh, but I hope you all have a lovely Easter. If you are hopefully self-isolating like I am and Ray is and everyone else, I'm sure at the moment, have a safe and well weekend.
Yep, and I'd like to close off by saying thank you very much for attending the webinar, because it's been quite a long one. We're conscious of that. Thank you for all of your questions, and also thank you for your feedback. It's your feedback that drives our, if you like, and informs our product development. We're constantly striving to innovate and be the best in the industry. So thanks to you, we're certainly working towards that, and we really appreciate having you on this webinar. Thanks again. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you so much, everyone.